and UK negotiators have until Sunday to reach agreements on a future Brexit trade deal, following a 3-hour meeting between Boris Johnson and the European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen last night.
Significant gaps remain between the two sides, with hopes of a last-minute agreement fading. We're joined now by the Foreign Secretary, Dominic Raab. Good morning to you, Mr Raab. Thank you for joining us this morning. So, look, we've got 4 days to try and get this done. If you were a gambling man, how much money would you put on us getting a deal by Sunday?
I'm not really a gambling man, I have to say, sorry. I think it's difficult to say. That the truth is, what we know is they had a very frank discussion. There are still significant differences. We'll continue the negotiations. I think, as you've seen with the Prime Minister going out to Brussels, we'll leave no stone unturned. We'd like to get a free trade deal. What we can't do is sacrifice the basic points of democratic principle. We can't be left without any control of over our fisheries, unlike any other country in the world, and we're not going to allow ourselves to be pegged to rules that we've got no control over, that your listeners or your viewers can't hold people like me to account for. And we'll take a decision. I think both sides recognise we need some finality, and we'll take a decision on the future of the negotiations on Sunday.
So you might not be a gambling man, but we know that Boris Johnson does like a flutter. And in fact, in June 27th, 2019, it's not that long ago in political terms, although it does seem a lifetime ago, he said the chances of a no-deal Brexit are 1,000,000 to 1 against. Vanishingly small, he described the chances of a no-deal Brexit. Was he lying? Was it just bravado? How do you sort of justify the position that he had back then and the reality of where we are right now?
We've got a deal. We've got the withdrawal agreement. We've got the Northern Ireland Protocol. And the question was whether we can secure the additional free trade agreement or whether we leave on Australia-style rules. I think we've shown, and I think he's shown over the last 24 hours, his will, his flexibility to get a deal over the line. I think Michael Gove's done a great job with our European opposite numbers in the Joint Committee on Northern Ireland. We've resolved those tensions. So there's been no lack of flexibility, goodwill, pragmatism on our side. But I think for your viewers, the idea that we'd be the only country in the world, as we left the transition period on the 1st of January, not able as an independent coastal state to control our fisheries, not in control of our laws, but pegged to EU rules, not just now, but in the future. Well, that's not something I think we can accept, or any self-respecting Prime Minister of this country could accept.
The difficulty is, isn't there, as you were mentioning earlier, there's still significant differences. The EU have their red lines, we have their red lines, which, you know, aren't going to be crossed. So it looks like we are heading to no deal. And there's a lot of worry about the consequences of that. We know from an economic point of view, the Office for Budget Responsibility has talked about there'll be a 4% hit to the economy in the event of Brexit, and a further 2% if there's no deal. We see on the front page of the Mirror today, Tesco's food stockpile for no deal. They're all worried about how it's going to affect the availability of food, food pricing as a consequence. There are going to be serious difficulties, aren't there, the direction that we're heading in, that there's going to be no deal.
But if we end up without a free trade agreement, and there'll be changes no matter what on the 1st of January, I think there will be some froth, if you like, some issues to resolve. But I think we're well placed to deal with those. I don't accept any of this scaremongering about food prices. It's just, if you look at, for example, tariffs, a very small proportion of the average food bill. There are also the positives. Come the 1st of January, Liz Truss done a great job. We've got 27 free trade deals with non-EU countries that we've teed up, some of those to continue the arrangements that we had as an EU member, but some, like with Japan, on data and digital, which will take us further. And we've seen recently, from Netflix to Merck, the pharmaceutical company, big London HQs invested in this country because, as I said, from science to the creative industries, those businesses see Britain as an international leader. So, look, I'm not saying there won't be changes on the 1st of January, or some degree of challenge. There will, but we'll make a success of it. And let's not lose sight of the positives and the opportunities.
Just to go pick up on that point that you said about it being scaremongering to talk about, you know, food supplies being affected. But the Tesco chairman, John Allen, has said the worst case scenario of a no-deal Brexit will mean short-term disruptions to supplies and higher prices for consumers as a result of substantial tariffs. Now, presumably, you've done the figures on this in the event of a no deal and how that will hit consumers. What's it going to mean, for example, for our average weekly spend on food in the supermarket?
So first of all, in relation to the CEO of Tesco's, he's actually earlier in the month said that Tesco's was well placed for Brexit with an FTA or without a new free trade deal.
In relation to
They're making provisions for it.
Can you just give me a couple of seconds to answer, because there's about 3 different points in there. In relation to food supply, 50% of UK food supply comes from within the UK, 20% comes from outside the EU, 30% from the EU. So we've got a good diversification of food supply. On food prices, the risk, of course, is that the EU would impose tariffs on the UK. That would significantly and substantially damage European producers. But even so, in relation to the cost of living and the average food basket, it's a very small proportion. Many other things will affect the price of food in this country, and far more significant than tariffs.
OK, we need to talk also, obviously, about coronavirus, the situation at the moment with the vaccine. We've had the good news this week, but there's also the news coming from Wales that they've had a record daily high, 2,238 new cases. The situation's not looking good there. The situation's also not looking good in London. Sadiq Khan has put a warning out. It looks like London might be heading for Tier 3. Is it time to rethink the plans for Christmas and the allowances that have been made for families to get together?
Well, we've got a plan coming out of the national lockdown, the tiered restrictions. And of course, with the vaccine rollout and needles going in arms this week, we've also got, I think, light at the end of the tunnel to the spring, where the vaccine programme, we hope, will get us into a better place, life getting back to normal. And the key question is how we bridge from now to then. You've seen, as you rightly point out, in Wales and London, how important it is to keep our eye on the ball, maintain control over this virus, and the risk if we don't. The 2 key elements of that are to follow, not to think because of the vaccine breakthrough that somehow we're in the clear, to keep following the rules in every tiered area. And also with the testing that has come through, we've got the best testing rate in Europe, one of the world leaders now, to make sure that with those 2 things, we bridge safely to the spring.
Do you see London going up to Tier 3 next week? The review happens on Wednesday.
Sorry, you were both speaking at the same time. I didn't quite catch it.
The review of the tier system happens next Wednesday. Do you see London going up to Tier 3 with that spike in numbers that we're seeing in many boroughs?
Well, I certainly don't want to preempt what happens. I think it's on the 16th, as you say, but we have those review mechanisms so that we can keep control over the virus. And of course, different regions can go up or down depending on the progress we're making. That's why I say every area needs to keep, people need to keep their eye on the ball. The local authorities need to make sure that the restrictions are being followed, the guide there, and those decisions can be made. People go up or down tiers, but it depends on the state of the virus.
Listen, I just want to say, you talk about hanging on for the vaccine. We've been running a poll this morning. Will people have the vaccine? 57% of people said yes. 43% of viewers who got in touch with us said no, they would not. There's a real issue here, isn't there, about trust that seems to be behind the fact that people have worries about this vaccine. They don't think they can trust it.
Well, it's been, look, you're right to point to that, Sophie, although I think we need to be really responsible in the way we approach this. And I know you are being, but first of all, it's been cleared by the MHRA. With new vaccines, I know there have been issues around allergies. That's quite common. And the mechanisms are in place to be able to adapt the guidance accordingly. But the reality is this vaccine is safe. I would certainly take it. I would have every one of my family take it, and it will be crucial in terms, we've seen the death toll over 60,000 in this country, 61,000. It's crucial to getting ourselves, taking the fatality out of this virus, making it more akin to something like seasonal flu, and allowing us to move forward, not just in health terms, but economic terms. But you're right, and you're right to point to those concerns. I think as we make progress with this rollout, confidence will increase.
Right, Dominic Raab, we're going to have to leave it there. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate yours. Thanks.